Okay, well, welcome again, everybody. I'm Nancy Steele, and this is part two of what we started the other day. The other day, I kind of gave you a framework around communication matrix and the work that we have been doing. And today, I want to focus more on trying to get through all 7 levels and really giving some intervention strategies with this. And just, I want to caution you that these are just, there's a lot of work involved in this. And what I'm giving you today is a sampler platter of that. It's just a smidgen of all the different strategies that we have been working on with this body of work. So it is not all encompassing. What I tried to do was start with like level 1 and then take a few different strategies from each level, and knowing that as you're going up the levels with a learner, with an individual, then you would want to keep some of the earlier strategies still in place. And just because I'm not going to talk about them in the higher levels doesn't mean that you wouldn't do that. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to start off with level 1, and that's that pre-intentional behavior. And now when we think about the matrix and where it starts, it gives us ages. And if we think about these stages, typically happen from birth to 2 years old. Okay. So this pre-intentional level 1, it typically, in typical developers, it is from birth to 3. So that's that real early stages of communication. Now, I also want to stop and say right now that just because someone is communicating at a lower level, that does not equate to brain power. That doesn't necessarily mean that their brain is developed only at that level. So I want to caution you that just because their communication hasn't moved forward. And I think definitely about deafblind learners, a lot of times that brain is right there and it's ready. It's just that we haven't found the combination of the different things that we need to do on our end in order to move that communication down further. So let's always keep that in mind and always keep that bar up higher. Just because it says that, and we struggled with whether we would even put those ages up there, but we felt like in order for us to really understand it, we had to understand that stage and what happens in that stage. So let's talk a little bit about level 1 and what happens in that stage. So behavior is not under the individual's control, but it reflects his general state. So if he's sleepy or his diaper is dirty or he's uncomfortable or hungry or all that, he's going to make those behaviors, and we're going to observe those behaviors, and then we're going to interpret those behaviors. So we're going to look at those facial expressions, or maybe those movements, and we're going to make the assumption it means this. And it's always good. I've talked to several people in the last few days even that have talked about folks that don't even recognize any of that as communication. And it's real important for all of us just to put it in our mind that behavior is communication, and we are going to try to figure out. Now, sometimes just because he scratches his nose might actually be itching. And so that's not really communicating things that we need to necessarily know. So there are those things that happen, but we're really looking at their behavior as communication as we move forward in this. Okay, so behavior, or level 1 behaviors, are reflexive or reactive behaviors, and they're associated with specific internal states. So they're real reliant upon our interpretation of them. So they may be crying or gurgling or cooing or making some kind of vocalization. Sometimes it's a matter of the breath. They may like that, or just breathing will change. Sometimes it's either stiffening or relaxing, and especially with our learners who are very motorically involved, we may have to really look for those slight movement behaviors, just slight stiffening or very relaxed, or maybe just postural changes. So we're really looking at their bodies and seeing if we can decide what those behaviors are meaning. So a lot of times, if they are hungry, then the partner is going to assign meaning to it. If they're, whatever the state is of the individual, then the partner usually assigns meaning, which may be that they refuse something, or they're trying to obtain something, or maybe they're just trying to be social. Hey, I like it when you rock me. That feels good. I want more of that. So those kind of things, and we are going to be the ones that interpret those and really try to move them forward. What they typically, the behaviors that are used to determine these in the level 1 behaviors are usually body movements, some type of body movement, maybe sometimes kind of early sounds, and facial expressions. Those are the things that we're really going to look for in this level. They don't necessarily use any of the other 9 categories. These first 3 are the ones that you'll find in level 1. And then in this stage, the individual is neither deliberately pursuing a goal or aware of even any means to obtain the goal. So we're totally interpreting everything, and we're going to do that as if it was intentional. So as they move towards something, or they move their body forward, we're going to say, oh, I think you want this. And we're going to do on that. So there's absolutely no one who doesn't not communicate. I know that's 2 double negatives in a sentence, but I don't know how else more plainly to put it, that everyone communicates, everyone. And like I said, I've gotten a lot of pushback in the last few days. Oh no, I haven't seen anything. And it's just that they're not recognizing those behaviors that way. So all communication partners, it's really on our end in levels 1 and 2 to really, really be responsive and purposeful and really intentional when we're trying to get those behaviors to come out. And we're trying to really get them to recognize them. So it's really important. All of them, we must respond. Okay, so part of what we did with our work when we were starting to think about intervention strategies is we thought about that there are 3 different ways of looking at it. One is what the partner does. That would be us as the service providers, as the teachers or the SLPs or whomever, the family member, whomever, you're the partner. Then the individual, what they should be doing, and what part they have to play in this, and then the environment, because any one of those 3 are all 3 of those are equally important in this. So we have to promote intentional communication, and it's going to be it relies on that supportive environment, or using activities that are really preferred and motivating to the individual. So we have to look at what do they like. I was talking to someone earlier today who was talking about a level 2 kid, and she said she really likes to rock. Well, that's the stuff we're going to use. We're going to use the things that they like, and we're going to go down there and we're going to do those things with them in order for them to see, oh, I'm a responsive partner and I want to have a conversation with you. I want to engage with you in a way that maybe you haven't realized you can do yet. Okay, so when we're looking at those intervention strategies for level one, what we want to do is be that highly responsive partner. That means that I'm really going to be watching every move that they make. And I may even videotape just so that I don't miss things. Because as we're working with kids and as something happens, we turn and do this. And that may be about the time that they realize how to get their body together and we miss that movement. So it's really important at first, especially if you don't know them well, that you start looking at that. Now, no one likes to be videotaped, myself included, but you learn so much about the things that you're missing and the things that they're doing. So I would highly recommend that, especially for a child at a level 1 or 2, only because that's going to help you to recognize more things that are happening. I'm never ever going to act on an individual without them knowing what I'm about to do. So that means that when I'm first going to engage with any learner, I'm going to get down on their level and I'm going to get eye level with them and I'm going to let them know, hi, my name is Nancy, and I'm going to give them usually an object cue, something that's going to let them know who I am. I might, if I'm familiar with them and we do things together, I might do some like little petting game or something to let them know, hey, it's me, and this is what we're going to kind of be doing. So I'm always going to be doing those things. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be a respectful partner so that if the principal comes to the door, I'm not going to just jump up and leave and go, especially if the child is deafblind, because they don't know what just happened. And all of a sudden, I'm here and then I disappear. So I'm going to at least take 1 second to say, hey, you have to wait just a minute. They may not understand my message at first, but I think that that's part of being a respectful partner and helping them to understand that sometimes I have to move away from you. I have to go get things, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to let you know, hey, I'm back. And then I'm going to make sure that they're grounded and comfortable in their chair, plus their feet are on either the floor or some kind of block so that they do feel like they're grounded and that they can learn. Then I'm going to also make sure that they have control movement, that they're able to control movement. I was working with a team who had a light box with the student, and the student it was down on the floor with her, and she'd face plant her face and just, oh, first of all, she's staring into that light box and she didn't have a whole lot of vision. So we sure didn't want that happening. Plus she was licking the top of it because that was what she, is into right now. She wasn't using it in the appropriate way. But when they moved the light box and put it up where it was slanted so that she had to do it this way, then she got so much more out of it and she could use her vision in such a better way. So we have to think about that and think about how we can make that positioning. And if we don't know, that's why we have those members on the team. That's why we ask them and we work together. Wait time is just one of the most important things that we can do. And nobody likes to be videotaped. I hate it. But the thing that we have to do, especially in these early stages with kids, these earlier levels, is we might want to videotape ourselves because what we do, we have our agenda and we've got 5, 6, 7 things we want to get done in 30 minutes. Oh man, we've got so many things. And then also our brain is going on and on about not only this kid, but 5 or 6 other kids that we've got to see today. And oh yeah, I got to go to the grocery store and everything. So our mind is buzzing and not necessarily on the person in front of us. And so we're snapping off. What do we do? How do we do it? Come on. You don't have the answer? Let's go. I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to ask you again. And what happens is it's like a computer. And if your computer, you know how when it gets slow and we'll hit the enter button again and again. And what that does is makes the computer have to start over from scratch every time. that's what we're in essence doing to these kids. Every time that we're asking another question, every time we're interrupting, then it's like they have to start over again. So we want to give them time to process what was requested, time to organize their body in order to respond. And then for some, we have to only use one channel. Like if we're going to do something visually, we need to hush. If we're going to use something, we're going to say something and we want them to rely on their hearing, we won't put anything up visually. We have to really look and know our child and know what channels they use and how they use them. And then that distracting environment, we always want to make sure that that's not part of it, because that can derail some of the finest instruction. So wait time, just when you think you've waited, wait some more. Another thing is a partner's response dictionary. And this is going to be done throughout. You're going to change a little bit of the wording on the levels, the earlier levels. It's the partner's response dictionary. And at these levels, we're just looking at each time I, and that's the individual, does something. So we're capturing those behaviors. Each time they do this, I'm going to be interpreting it. We, the team, will interpret it to mean this. And then when they do this, my partner or me or whomever is going to do this. When we see this, then this is how we're going to do it. And I'm going to say this. And then my partner will shape the behavior to a more intentional behavior by doing these things. So you're looking at the behavior and you're putting all that out so that everybody's starting to recognize and see those patterns and use those same things that we're going to do and things that we're going to say. And then we have a vision of how we're going to shape it into something more intentional. So we also have to remember that we've got to pump it in receptively before we can ever expect it to come out expressively. So that's going to take a little while. We're going to have to do that, but we're really looking for those subtle cues and we're going to capitalize on them. Then we're going to use touch cues. And a touch cue is a tactile contact, and it's done somewhere on the individual's body. And it's happened in a consistent manner. So that if I am feeding someone, I'm going to give them the cue. I might touch right here and let them know, I'm going to feed you. Here's your spoon. Here's this. Or if I'm going to change their diaper, I'm always going to put, tap here where their diaper is in front and let them know, I'm going to change your diaper. And I'm always going to do it in the same way, in the same manner. And I'm going to do it directly on their body. And it's used to help communicate so that he knows this is what we're going to do. Also to give them cues, like if we are changing, I might touch the side of their bottom and go, okay, I need you to help me lift up. I'm going to lift up now. So I'm letting them know what's going to happen next. It's communicate a variety of my intents, what I'm going to do. I might be requesting, I might be praising, I might be greeting, but whatever it is, I'm going to do it in a very consistent manner. And it's also going to help reduce their startle or any challenging behaviors by helping them anticipate, because that's what we're going for here. We really want them to anticipate what's going to happen next. That helps them to get emotionally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, all together so that they can respond in the right way. They're used to support comprehension. Okay, we want to use them on individuals who have hearing or vision problems, any individual who has significant delay or disability with no known vision or hearing deficits. So anyone who has that significant stuff going on, we want to make sure that they get it. And we're going to also give them those consistent auditory messages along with it. So when we give those touch, we're also going to say diaper off, or, you know, a bite, or whatever you're going to say. Remember that some folks react differently to touch. So we want to make sure that we know how they're going to do that. We want to make sure that our pressure is right and the placement of the touch. So that's where we want to talk to family members. We also want to talk to our OTs and really understand about that. Now let's go into level 2. And in level 2, that typically happens from 3 to 8 months. And, you know, I was thinking about this a little bit earlier today. And that's when we, as moms, develop those mama ears. In the first few months, I remember my babies, and that's been a minute or two, but my babies would cry in those early stages, in those early months. And you just thought, oh, if I only knew what that meant, if I only knew what that cry was. Well, then around 3 to 6 months, they start that vocalization and different movements and different things start happening. Whereas we start as mamas and all, we start collecting, oh, wow, that, you know, if you talk to a mama of a baby that's that age, they can tell you what each cry means, what each moan, what each look, what each whatever. That's what this level 2 stage is. They're crying, they're vocalizing, they're doing those expressions, they're doing those kind of things. But they haven't figured out that if I do that, somebody's going to come and do something. They just are doing that because it happens to them, but they haven't realized that their behavior controls other people. They just know I'm hungry and this is what I do when I'm hungry. This is the sound I make, or this is how I do it. We still, as caregivers or teachers or whomever, we still interpret those needs and desires from the behaviors. So we're going to be looking at their body movements, their facial expressions, vocalizations, and maybe even eye gaze. This is where eye gaze may come in. If they have the vision, then that's where it's a little bit more. That's where we're going up that scale a little bit and bringing in the eyes. Whereas in level 1, they mostly used body movements, facial expression, and vocalizations. Now we're kind of adding that eye gaze, maybe part of it, but maybe not. And then they engage directly with objects and people rather than using an object to attract a person's attention. So they haven't figured out that anyone else knows their plan. They don't really have a plan, and they may be developing a plan, but they don't know that anybody else needs to know their plan or could be a part of their plan. And so that's where you might find a child that will come in and grab your arm and take you over to the refrigerator to get, well, no. Level 2 won't do that. They'll go get it themselves. They will just go and do things for themselves or whatever, but they haven't figured out yet that you could help them with that. You could be a tool in getting what they want. Okay, so this is where we get to transitional intentionality. We haven't gotten to intentional behavior yet. We're getting there. We're almost there. And this is, in this stage, is deliberately engaging in behavior, but it's not with that mental plan for obtaining that goal. The communication partner uses the context. So we're going to watch what they're doing and how they're doing it, and we're going to derive that meaning. Again, we're still interpreting. And some of those are unconventional forms of communication. And you're going to really see that in level 2. You're going to see a lot of unconventional stuff that goes on. Okay, so With that, when with expressive, they're going to start getting to intentionality. This is where we really need to shore up, and we really need to know that we could be a potential partner. So we're going to try to be in there, and we're going to make that purposeful communication that starts to emerge. And remember that they don't have a mental plan yet to communicate what it is that they desire. They just know they want it, but they don't know how they can get it. And receptively, we're going to start giving them the words, a few simple words, and maybe a few simple directives that are in context that's going to help them to understand that. So remember what I said a few minutes ago, these are the ones. Now we've added visual in there in level 2. If they have vision, then that's kind of added into level 2. So remember in level 2, the behaviors are not under the individual's control, and it's not yet used intentionally to communicate. But these are all the different things that we might use, the different modes. So with their voice, they may laugh or cry or grunt or vocalize some way. But in motor, they may start reaching out for things. They may look or eye gaze at something to let you know, oh, they're interested in that. They may move towards something. They may smile. They may activate a switch. But remember, they don't know what that really means yet. So we're having them do those things, but they may not understand when I do this, that's going to happen, or I'm going to get something, or someone's going to come over to me. So we need to respond to those behaviors so that they become aware that what they're doing has meaning, and we're going to help them with that communicative purpose. We're going to let them know, oh, you want this, then this is how you do it. Let me help you. Then we're going to give them that social contingency awareness, which is the understanding of our ability to cause other people to respond. And see, that's when it really gets powerful for kids. They're not there yet, but we're trying to give them that tool so that they recognize, oh, when I do stuff, people will come running. Oh, wow, that's powerful. And that's where we go. That's the difference between 2 and 3, is they haven't gotten there yet. They're almost there. So we have to really step up our efforts to entice them into social interactions. That's where I really want to play with them, and I really want to do that. And I'm going to use my speech to model things. I may cut down my verbiage. I may not talk a mile a minute and about everything. Oh, this is a cup and it's silver and it's this and da da da. I may not do that. I may say cup, drink, but I'm only going to use those power words that are going to help with the situation. And I'm going to give them as many opportunities as I possibly can. Then once again, we're going to look at that environment and make sure that we've got that going just like we did before. Then behavior is when we get to level 3, we're going to start under the individual's control and begins to have meaning for them. As we're doing this, we're kind of on that verge of stuff. So we're going to choose those behaviors to respond to and reinforce. And those that we don't want to, we're not going to play those up. We're going to kind of not get those as much, but we're going to start really shaping that behavior as much as we can. The unconventional behaviors, such as grunting for attention, may be shaped into a more conventional behavior. So instead of, then it's, oh, you need to let me know you want me, then you need to let me know this way. And maybe that's when you start putting in that call switch or whatever. Those self-injurious behaviors, we really, really need to watch those and they're sometimes the hardest to address. If they are self-injurious, you really need to think about a functional behavior assessment and think about how we can prevent that. But sometimes a kid will hit because that's what they've learned works for them. So sometimes they'll use hit as a greeting of, hi, it's good to see you, or kick, because that's what they've learned and that's gotten them attention. So you have to then carefully take that behavior and let them know that's not the way we get that. What we really need to do is focus it and get it shaped into the way that it needs to happen. But we do, as the team, really need to talk about those behaviors and what it is that's going on and how we can shape that. Then we have to start thinking now, as the partners, we have to start thinking about how will the individual receive language? Are they going to do it by hearing, or by seeing, by touch, or by a combination of all three? So we really have to start thinking about how are we going to help them receive this language? And we have to do it in a more formal mode and really systematically think about it. And we have to get all of the communication partners. So that means that the OT, PT, speech, classroom teacher, aide, parents, everybody who's going to be a part needs to know what's going to happen and how we're going to provide this. And we're also all modeling it. So when the OT comes in, they're modeling those communication things that everybody else is. And that's why the team is so vital in understanding and knowing these things. So some of the characteristics of a partner is they have to be responsive to even the most subtle cues. That means we have to pay attention. That means we put our other lives, everything else that's going on in our lives, out of our heads while we're with that individual, and we have to be fully engaged ourselves. Then we have to be enthusiastic. We have to have fun. You know, if I'm not having fun, how do I expect the kid to have fun? So I have to set the tone. I'm setting that. I want to be warm. I want to be accepting. If they're going to go to hit me, I may grab their hand to keep them from doing that, but I'm going to let them know, no, that's not the way we do it. This is how I want you to say hi to me. I really appreciate when you don't hit my head. And then I want it to be comfortable, and I'm also going to be respectful. I will always keep the dignity of the child at the highest peak. Then when I'm establishing that intentional behavior, I want to just create that atmosphere that's responsive. That means they haven't necessarily realized the control over their movements or their environment, or that something is purposeful in their behavior. So sometimes it's so subtle that we miss it, or we're not sure. I want to always caution you to err on the side of thinking it's intentional. Try, you know, oh, I think you want so and so, that so that you're naming it and you're going with it. Some of the targeted behaviors, they may include vocalizations or arm and leg movements, head movements, those facial expressions or those call switches. And my response, I want to have a predictable response and attention from them, or they need to know I'm going to be predictable, and they're going to have my full attention. And when I do that, they're going to start responding more because they're getting that attention that they want or need. And it strengthens them to understand physically what's expected of them, plus socially what's acceptable and what's expected of them. And that's as much a learning as anything else, is knowing what socially is expected. That's a huge part of life if you think about it. When we want to design instruction to promote the progress, that means we're consistent. We're going to use expectant delay or time delay in order to do that. So I'm not going to be like, in one breath, I'm telling you, be responsive, but also I'm going to be there. And as we're doing those exchanges, I might wait and hold off, even though I know what they want. After we've gotten that flow going, I may wait just enough so that they have to let me know. They really have to let me know. And they may do this, that for bounce or whatever it is. I'm going to increase the number of interactive communication turns that we do. So it's going to be a lot of turn taking, your turn, my turn. And then once we start that and really get things going, I want to bring in more partners because we're going to learn different things from different people. And we enjoy different people and different reasons that we enjoy different people. Why would our learners be any different? We're going to target those absent or emerging functions that are on the matrix. Those things, we're going to target them and really think of how are ways throughout the day that we can embed some of those things and make them happen naturally as we're feeding, as we're doing the morning circle time, as we're doing those things. What are ways that we can use some of those functions and have our learners have practice? Because that's how they learn, is through practice, through being able to do it over and over again. We're going to apply meaning in new environments. We're going to help them generalize. So once they learn it here, then we're going to take them out and have them do it in several other places so that they know, oh, well, this really does work in other places with other people. We're going to transition to intentional, unconventional behavior. That's that level 3. So we're applying that meaning for the partner becomes the individual's unconventional behavior. So we're going to let them know. We're going to transition those and shape it as much as we possibly can. We're going to do that by using routines. And what is that routine? It's a very predictable format that happens very much the same way, right? And it offers opportunities to develop those communication skills and concepts. And the concepts are huge that can be used, can be learned through routines. And it also helps develop relationships. Those concrete experiences provide that structure through those routines. As we do it, then it becomes predictable and rote. Think about how you learned how to drive a car. When you first were doing it, it was like this, and you could just barely take your both hands off the wheel to just turn it from park into drive, and then you're driving and now fast forward and think about how you drive to things. It's because you know those things so rotely that you're able to do it without even thinking about your driving. The only time you think about it is if there's a wreck or you, for whatever reason, don't get to go on your usual route. So and then you're multitasking. You're listening to the radio, you're singing, you're beating kids, you're doing all of those different things. You're trying to, but we can do that because we know our routine so well. I don't think that we've taught our kids routines so well that they become rote to them. They still happen. That's that disjointed. Let's flash back to when COVID first hit and how we were totally blown because of our routines. Our routines were all out of whack. We didn't have a routine. Everything that we knew was all busted. I feel like that's where our students are a lot of the time. I feel like they feel that disjointed, that it doesn't all connect. I don't understand that. So we want to take sections of time in their day and really make structured routines out of them so that they really understand what's going to happen next and what's expected of me and where I can put communication in. So it helps them to really organize themselves and organize how they are and increase their understanding. Plus, it just decreases stress. So we really want to think about that as an intervention strategy, especially with these lower levels. But this is something, routines are something that I would expect you to do with all 7 levels of students, because that's really what makes a difference. Now, remember in level 1, we were doing that my response dictionary. Now we've changed it and it's my pre-symbolic symbol dictionary. See, we're asking the same things, but now it's each time the student does this, it's interpreted as this. We're going to do these things. We're going to say these things. And I'm going to take that unconventional behavior and how can I shape it to more conventional, socially appropriate behavior? Because that's what, a lot of times it's that we need to shape it into something that's more socially acceptable for folks. And then they'll understand it more and understand our learner more. So if we want to do just a real quick recap of those things, we have to think about receptive communication in all of these levels. When we're thinking about level 1, that receptive communication is that we want them to react to people and begin to orient towards them. In level 2, we want to start getting them to that anticipation level where they're orienting towards people and may begin to attend to their behaviors. And so that's, we want them to start learning that they may quiet and orient to something. They may touch something or tactfully explore the person when they're engaged and show that general anticipation that's, that I understand what's going to happen next, or I'm engaged. They may move their body forward. Now at level 3 and even in level 4, we get them to recognition. Oh, I understand this. I know what's going to happen, and I know exactly we're going to attend to their communication and respond to their specific behaviors and intents. So we're actually getting to that place where we recognize in level 3. In level 3, this is unconventional, intentional, pre-symbolic communication. That's a lot. So unconventional because it's socially not what everybody else does, but it's intentional in its behavior. They're very intentional. They know what they want and they know that they can use you as a partner, that they can get things from you by doing certain things. That's going to make you come running or you to do things. And then it's pre-symbolic because we still aren't using any kind of symbol system or such in order to get there. So these are pre-symbolic. There's no kind of symbols, and they're unconventional with the social stuff. So now we're going to go into development of symbolization also. So we're getting from intentionality where we're really, and now we're starting. Remember, all of this is still that receptive piece that we've got to put in before we can ever get that expressive. So while we're still at level 3 and we're starting to address or starting to introduce these things, we really aren't expecting them to give it back to us yet. We're not really expecting that expressive stuff because first we've got to put it into them first and get them to where they receive it and understand and they comprehend it. So when we do a symbol, that is one thing that represents another thing. So we have something solid that they could touch, that they could refer to. So the referent is the object or action to be represented. And then the representation is maybe I might use a spoon to mean time to eat. So that's where I'm getting into that symbolization and that this means this. So different people recognize different stages in the development of symbolization. What we're going to use for our purposes and what's in the matrix is pre-symbolic. So that's that level 3, that unconventional. And level 4 is when it starts getting into conventional. So unconventional is you hit to say hi to me. And whereas level 4 would be you might wave to say goodbye, hi to me or goodbye to me. So some use the term non-symbolic, some use pre-symbolic, all of those things. So that's that pre-symbolic or non-symbolic is the level 3, level 4. Then we get into concrete symbolic, which is another transitional stage, and that's in level 5, and then abstract symbolic, which is level 6. Now, I do want to say with level 4, a lot of times, some of our guys with vision issues or that are blind may not use a lot of the things in level 4 because those are conventional, the pointing, the gestures, and if they don't have the vision, they may not see it, so therefore they may not do it. So let's go back into levels of symbolic and pre-symbolic. Those are those idiosyncratic signals may be used. So they may be personalized to that child, something that they do. And the responsibility for the communication rests on the partner. So a lot of stuff rests on us we're the ones that are responsible for getting this up and moving and running. And the context of that interaction is just critical. You've got to look at the context of what is happening in order for you to really unpack that. So an example of unconventional, pre-symbolic might be crying, or they might, you know how kids will bow back and do that kind of body posturing thing, or they may act on people or objects. You know, they may come over and hit on you, and that means I'm really thirsty and I want something to drink, you know. So it's those unconventional things that they do. They may use unconventional gestures or vocalizing that the rest of us don't necessarily always understand, but that's that pre-symbolic stuff. That's where we start getting into some simple gestures, and we're still going up. We've got the movements, body movements, all of those things still apply, but now we're adding in some gestures that may come in. So in level 3, and y'all excuse me because this work is still being edited and worked, and so it's not, that's why the red thing is there. We're still working on stuff. So in level 3, the behaviors are starting to become more intentional. I was working with a young lady, and she had her shoes and socks off and her feet up in the air, and she's, you know, just fluttering them. And so I went in and started playing with her feet and blow with the little pants on, and she kept pulling her shirt up as I was blowing and playing with her. And I thought, oh, law, you know, I'm in front of folks that I don't know very well. I'm being videotaped. I'm trying to explain what's going on with this kid, how she's communicating, all of these things. And she keeps pulling her shirt up, and she had a G-tube. And I was so afraid she was going to pull that. And so I kept pulling it down. And we play a little bit more, and she kept pulling that shirt back up. And finally, somebody said, Mom, do you play like raspberries on her belly? And Mom said, well, yes, I do. Well, I had been doing that same thing to her feet. So she was remembering something, a prior experience that she had had, and it was something that she really liked to do. So therefore, she's showing me, hey, I've played this game before, but when I played it, it was on my belly. And see, I didn't know her, so I didn't know that. And it took somebody else saying, hey, could that be? And the mom saying, well, yes. So those are the things that happen where it starts getting intentional. And that's where we really need to know the child and know what's going on, and maybe ask other people if there have been prior experience, because sometimes they're very well know what's happening and they want you to play with them, want you to engage, but you don't know their language in essence. And in that particular case, I didn't know her language. But when I did, man, we had a blast playing with each other. So it requires a lot of orientation to both communication the communication partner, and the context. They really are starting to learn how to maneuver their environment and the people in it. And so all of these different um, modes of communication will come into play. They may tug on you, or they may push you away, or they may do several other different things. Eye gaze, or try to get up close to you. Sometimes they'll activate switches. So characteristics um, of intentionality is when they perform this behavior only when the individual knows another person is present, except for when it's at a distance, and that's only used like vocalization. So some of those things are that persistence. Remember my gal with the shirt, she was persistent. She kept pulling it up. I kept pulling it down. She kept pulling it up because she wanted me to play that game with her. And then the repetition. So over and over, we're going to play these things. We're going to do these things over and get it more and more. They may do that alternating gaze where they might look at something, like look at a cup, look at you, and then look back at the cup to let you know, yay, I want this. They may move their body kind of towards it or lean towards things. They may move their body in a certain way. They may change their signal. If you're not getting it one way, they may change it another way. Instead of, they might, different things like that to show that, hey, I'm going to change this. I'm waiting, and then waiting for those response. Then they're going to terminate the signal when responded to. And they're also going to let you know the satisfaction or dissatisfaction to the response. When we think about it, these are the different kinds of intents that they're going to use. And this is what they might show in level 3. As you know, we're still using refuse, obtain, and social. And we're not so much in information. We're not there yet. We don't care. They don't care at this stage about that. So we're really looking at these other things. And these are the things that they're going to be showing. These are the intents that they're going to be showing us. Those early expression of those memories, like I was talking about with my girl with her shirt, it's likely to incorporate movement and tactile parts of that for them to try to get you to understand. Once again, she was raising that shirt up. She wanted me to do that. She thought that was the best thing ever. Okay, so any kind of AT considerations kind of start beginning with intentionality at level 3. So before at level 1 and 2, we can have them there, but we're really, it's not going to do a whole lot of good. You might do it so receptively they can receive that information, but it really begins here. And they can start with that calling device. So we might want to consider where that switch is placed. We might really consider the positioning. We want to consider their mobility or their range of motion. Can they get their arm there? Can they move their head to activate the switch? What's going to happen? And we also really want to think about their vision in this. Okay, so communication partners, intervention framework. We as the partners need to determine the best channels for taking in information. So are they going to do it auditorily? If they're deaf, no, they're not. If they don't have the vision, that's not going to be. What about tactily? How can we make it so that they're going to receive that information? Which channels are we going to use? Which ones have we identified that they are using or are using better? And how can we communication go? We're going to observe that individual during unstructured time. We're going to really watch and see how they engage with their environment and how they do it. We're going to kind of follow their lead too and see what it is they do. I'm going to embellish communicative signals. I'm going to make it really can. And remember that non-symbolic skills must be directly taught. So many times we really have to teach it. Remember, when we don't have that vision, then we've lost a channel where we've learned all of those concepts that we've just picked up. So many of these skills, if we don't have that vision, we're really going to have to directly teach it so that they can really grab it. Okay. Before beginning, some of the things you need to know. Motivation. What are the reinforcing topics or settings for them to communicate about? So what is it that they like? What are some possible responses that I'm going to get? How is he going to express himself? We have to know that ahead of time. What are we expecting from them? How will he engage, or how will he gain our attention? How will he initiate that communication with others? And then how will he indicate that he'd like to continue something? Is he going to do it this way, or we're going to have a switch? How are we going to do that? What's that going to look like? And those are the things that we have to continually ask ourselves. How are we going to give them a way to indicate a preference or make a choice? And we really have to stop and think about how to make choices, and also living with those choices. Because how do we learn the most? We learn the most by making bad choices, and we had to live with it and figure it out. That's what made us learn is, oh, I'm not going to do that again. So we have to do the same thing here. It's not being ugly. That's life. That's how you're learning, is by living with your choices and learning how to make those choices. Design this instruction so that we can see progress. And what does that going to look like? So our overarching goals for level 3 are, we're going to shape those unconventional gestures into conventional gestures or symbols. And some of those conventional gestures are really require good vision or motor skills. And they may not be ones that we want to target if the child doesn't have good vision or their motor skills. We have to maybe observe, identify those unconventional communicative behaviors and really understand them and jot them down. What are they? What are they using? And remember, we're going to use our speech always. And that intentional communicative acts are more likely to occur if it's in that highly preferred activity, or when they're in close proximity to that communicative partner who's responsive. So we've got to be up close to them, and we got to let them know. A lady I was talking to earlier today, who was talking about a child who's at level 2, was talking about the caretaker had no ideas of any kind of behavior that was going on that was communicative, although she did say, oh, she hates to be, contained. She hates it when she's held down or confined. And what do? But the speech therapist is coming into the home to work with her. And guess what? They've got her in a chair, and she's, buckled in, and there's a tray on it. So she's already furious because you've got her locked in. And so she's not interested at all in what the speech therapist has to offer, because she just wants to get out. And so when she's in that kind of stage, she's not going to do a whole lot. We got to think about being close and also be respectful for what is our learner going to want? How are they going to, what's going to best come across? Okay. So possible targets across the environment's intents. And this is the individual. This is their responsibility. So we want them to demonstrate the ability to discriminate objects in an array to find and indicate desired objects. So we want them exploring. And a lot of our guys with deaf blindness, it's a safe world this way. So getting them to explore in the first place that's giving them courage to explore and become explorers, because it's real safe here. They've been out in the world and it's not so safe. That's where I want to have like a tray where the things that we're working with are going to be right there so that they feel safe in exploring that area. I'm going to request the attention prior to making a request. So I'm going to make sure I have their attention before I start things. And a lot of times we get in there and we start our stuff and we're going and we forget that we need to get them on board first. And we need to give them kind of some directions on how we're going to do this and what's expected. A lot of times if we don't, then they're going to do things their own way just to please us and push it forward, or they're going to do this because they don't understand what's expected. I'm going to engage them, and when they desire to terminate an interaction with the topic, I'm going to let them know, I hear you, I understand, but I'm the one that's going to kind of one more thing, one more almost finished. I'm going to let them know, yes, we're doing this and we're doing it, but it's on my terms in some ways. I'm going to let them know and validate them. When they do want to terminate, we may do one more and then finished, and then we'll go through things. But validating them is really important. I'm also going to increase the number of topics of interest. So it may start out with stuff that they really like. Then I'm going to gradually think of activities that may be like what they like, but I'm also going to bring in stuff that's of similar and start increasing those topics of interest. I'm going to demonstrate ways to request attention from a partner when it's in close proximity and also when they're far away. So I'm going to let them know those things. Okay. And the way I'm going to do this is by looking across environments. I'm going to look at their day and list their day and the different environments. Even if it's in the same room, there may be different places in that room that we go. So looking at the environments, looking at the activities, and what are the communication intents that I see across there? What are the different ways that they're doing this? How can we know what to do? Okay, Jen, it is 4:30. Do you want me to, what do I do here?
Nancy, it's totally up to you. If you want to keep going, if people are willing to stay on, that's great. And regardless, we're recording, so people can watch the recording if they're not able to stay on with us for the rest of the time.
Okay, I'll continue if anybody else is on board with me.
What about our interpreters? Anna, give me a sign. You gotta go? Okay. All right, we got one that needs to leave. I don't know if Melissa is able to stay for a little bit or not.
Do we want to wrap up level 3 and then maybe look at doing another session with levels 4, 5, or 6 and 7?
That's also a good plan. We could do that.
I mean, it's you all in the chat pod. Tell us what you want. We'll do it whichever way you want. Once again, with level 3, we're looking at establishing those. Oh, okay. People are starting to put in, and I can't see the chat. So
yeah, they're saying definitely next time. We scheduled another session for next time. So
okay.
Let's just finish level 3 and then
let me finish level 3 and then we'll stop and we'll come up with another time. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, so once again, that level 3, when we're targeting, the focus is that social contingency awareness. We really want them starting to be aware of partners and getting them moving and getting them going. Some may require extraordinary efforts to entice them into communication. So we're really going to be off the chart with some of those things. Then we're going to repeat, let's see, we're going to engage them in a desired interaction. This is the individual and the partner. And we're going to do those repetitive games or things, and then we're going to stop. And we're going to insert those pauses so that they have to let us know that they want more. They want continuation of whatever it is. We're going to repeat the activity. When the signal is detected, we're going to stop and wait with it. We want them getting to where they will let us know what it is. The outcome of that is when we do that repetitively, when we're really trying to give them those experiences, then they learn to produce the signal with the intent of asking the partner to repeat the activity or do it again. You know, that's where that more or again or whatever. But once again, I would caution you to go on and put whatever that is. So more bouncing, again, bouncing, jumping, whatever. Put that action verb or that noun with it so that they know what it is that they want. Requesting more of an item. And we just kind of went through that. Gaining that attention. So what we want is that withholding that attention while it's clear that you are available to be engaged until the behavior is produced. So that means when they tug, what we want them to do is vocalize, tug, touch us, any kind of switches. And what we're going to do is really then let them know that they've gained our attention. We're going to be really elaborate with ours. We're going to include that verbal and that physical contact. What we really want them to know is that they're learning to produce the signal with the intent of gaining our attention. So we're going to kind of let it go, and then we want them to be, you know, making something so that, and then come back. Oh, you wanted me. Well, you did great. That's exactly how you do it. So you're letting them know. Then we're starting making those choices. And that can be done through the individual. You're going to have the partner involved and the environment. And we're going to start with those 2 or more items, usually 2, offered at the same time. So we're going to hold up those items. And remember, when we start with choice making really is a fundamental thing for communication, because when we do that, first of all, they're initiating. That's teaching them how to initiate, but they're also letting us know what they want. That's communication. And we go from those very simple choices here to making from choices to making decisions as you get older. So think about that. We're starting with those real simple choices, but we're also building those concepts so that it becomes decisions as they become adults. So always thinking in terms of that's a higher level skill, and we're keeping it going. And we want them to have those things. All right. Okay. I think that we are going to, let's see. I think we'll stop. How's that? Because people are kind of ready, and we will move on to the next. Hopefully we'll figure out a time when we can do the rest of this.